Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Buku Abel Natural Processed Ethiopia from Calendar Coffee. And there's the bag right there. And Calendar, based out of Galway, Ireland. And they're a coffee roaster that's been a regular fixture on this channel, as we've reviewed at least 2 of their coffees each year for the last 4.5 years. But in all of that time, one thing has eluded us, and that is reviewing one of their natural processed coffees, as for the longest time, they've offered either no naturals or just one natural each year, and we were never able to obtain one. That is, of course, until Airworks bringing them in happened to coincide with them offering this coffee. So after over 4.5 years, we finally have our opportunity to review one of their naturals. So it'll be interesting to see how it turned out, as this right here is day 49. And recipe we went with for this coffee was a toned down one at a 15:1 water to coffee ratio, brewed at 93 degrees Celsius, about 199 degrees Fahrenheit. And I like this one best through the V60, which does indicate a more medium fine grind. Roast profile for this coffee. One of the main selling points to us on Calendar for so many years was that they roasted significantly lighter than a lot of their Irish-based contemporaries, and at the time they were significantly lighter than a lot of the English-based coffee roasters as well. And this one right here isn't necessarily quite as light as some of the other experiences we've had with them in the past, and that is likely due to the processing of this coffee. That being said, it is still significantly lighter than anything we've had from any other Irish-based coffee roaster, and the majority of English-based coffee roasters, though there are some that are starting to roast a little closer to what Calendar is offering as well. So for comparison, I would say that this one probably does skew a little bit more medium lightish sort of range, as there was a little bit more of some robust qualities in this one than we've experienced in the past. With all that out of the way, let's go and start discussing this coffee. Day 30, first impression, and we did opt for the V60, and the coffee was essentially in line with the expectations for a natural, especially given the descriptors of this coffee. So it was a slightly heavier experience with an abundance of a chocolate berry quality that is synonymous with natural processed Ethiopian coffees. Pretty sweet and direct nonetheless. So one of the main reasons why I wanted to review one of Calendar's natural processed coffees is because I had the same curiosity as we had with Kopi's natural processed coffees. Now, most of these two coffee roasters, Kopi and Calendar, I do believe both of them roast on the Probat, and their wash processed coffees tend to be a little bit more tame. So when it comes to their naturals, I wanted to see if they would also maintain that, maybe a little bit cleaner and more tame, but in both cases, they definitely did seem to offer plenty of the more robust and intense natural processed characteristics, so go figure, a natural would taste like a natural. Day 33, through the Chemex, and the coffee is pretty similar this time around as it continues to offer plenty of the natural intensity, still in a bit heavier berry forward sense with a slightly more robust chocolate feel. There was a glimmer of hope at the very end as it was offering a subtle fresh fruit characteristic as the coffee does cool down, so I was definitely optimistic that this coffee would have some really nice hidden fruit qualities to it. Day 36, through the UFO brewer, and the coffee is still continuing to offer plenty of the heaviness and robustness. And it is worth noting that we are reviewing one other coffee from Calendar, and seeing the contrast between the two, as that other coffee was definitely on the more tame side of things, definitely a very Calendar-like coffee that we were working with on that one. And this one was just the complete opposite of that. It made for an interesting dynamic given we were drinking one after another each and every day. So there are still traces of the cleaner fresh fruit qualities in the background, but for the most part, it still continued to remain just okay. Day 38, through the V60 with some higher extraction adjustments, so we decided to push this coffee, see what we would get from it, 17:1 at 99 Celsius with a bit more fine of a grind. And the coffee is still just okay, as these adjustments have mostly seemed to accentuate the heavier qualities in the coffee, which is honestly what I was expecting. And given that we pushed the other coffee, we decided to just stay the same on this one and see what happens, as there's even more of the listed chocolate attributes to it in a more dominant sense. Plenty of the berry qualities, though they do feel a little bit more toned down in comparison to the much more robust chocolate base to it. Day 40 through the Chemex with the same adjustments, and the coffee is surprisingly better as it's offering more fruit qualities in the listed tropical sense. So this is the first time I can say that I was experiencing a little bit more of a mango-like characteristic. They have papaya listed on here, which is something I could certainly see given the strong tropicality of it. Still a little heavy in the finish with a mostly chocolate base, but better overall once again. Day 42 through the V60 with some lower extraction adjustments. So as you can see, we're working on 2-day increments with these coffees, and that's because, again, we were running low on reviews, so I needed to kind of pump out this review. But at the same time, we probably would have started this coffee around the day 14 mark to begin with. So this is long past the window that we would have usually finished this coffee anyway. There's still a fair bit of the opted for the lower extraction adjustment, so 15 to 1 at 93 degrees Celsius. And the coffee was the best it had been to this point, as there was less of the heaviness, less of the fermentiness, and a better defined chocolate base with a better definition to the tropicality and berry qualities as well. So basically think of what you would expect for a natural processed Ethiopian coffee with better definition to it. That's essentially the picture we were getting on this day. Day 44, through the Chemex with the same adjustments, and there were struggles. As you can kind of see, there were certain days, higher extraction, we got better results with the Chemex and worse results with the V60, and then the complete inverse. Lower extraction adjustments, we got better results with the V60 and less impressive results with the Chemex. So this coffee was definitely inconsistent. It offered the same characteristics. It just depended on how you brewed this coffee, that one might be accentuated a little more so than the other, which is something you might expect. But given the very strong contrast each time we brewed it, it definitely did play a significant role in how we went about this coffee. It does still offer a decent level of balance given what this coffee is, but for the most part, it's still berry forward, chocolate forward, more so than I would necessarily like. Day 46, final notes we have through the V60 with the lower extraction adjustments once again, and the coffee is back to being at its best as it's offering better cleanliness and definition, which is everything that I go for when it comes to every single coffee, but even more so when it comes to naturals, as it's still a little fermenty, it's still a bit robust, and there's still a bit more of the berry qualities to it in a blueberry, strawberry sort of sense. But outside of that, there's at least decent definition to the fruit qualities. So I can say that the strawberry at times presents a little cleaner, but it's much more the dark berry qualities that kind of hinder the overall cleanliness of it. Outside of that, a bit of tropicality and plenty of we'll say darker chocolate, because this one wasn't necessarily a true milk chocolate sort of base, but just a little bit more robust of a chocolate. All right, so let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we're getting. And we have quite a few level 4s. This definitely looks like the tasting wheel of a natural processed coffee. So let's go through it. We'll start with the finish and we'll discuss it alongside the sweetness, both of which at a level 4. It is what it is, and that's honestly fully expected for this coffee. The sweetness comes in that slightly more syrupy, heavier berry sense. So not necessarily my favorite, but it's not overbearing whatsoever since both of them are toned down at the level 4. I don't think that the finish ever really had potential of scoring any higher than that, because we did push this coffee and even then it wasn't overbearing whatsoever. So I think the hypothesis going into this one that it would maybe not necessarily be as heavy and intense as your average natural did turn out to be true. So credit where it's due. Level 4 is definitely the best place for that to finish up when it comes to a natural. Plurality level 4. There were plenty of the perfumey floral qualities to it. Definitely thinking a lot of those violets, lavender characteristics, as it's very much a natural. If you would have served me this coffee and said, what is this coffee? I would have 100 out of 100 times thought that this is a natural processed Ethiopian coffee because of the berry characteristics to it and the perfumey florals. As it's very direct. It's a lot of what you'd expect. So that's definitely a level 4. Berry fruit, level 4. What I just said, and they do have strawberry listed as one of the notes on here, and when you're able to get in a cleaner sense, it definitely offers one of the more enjoyable experiences, but it definitely has more of that robust, heavier berry quality to it. So blueberry I usually associate it with a darker grape characteristic, so level 4 where we opted to put that. Handful of level 3s, we'll go ahead and start with the acidity level 3. Not the brightest, as I kind of mentioned, they did a good job of keeping this coffee balanced, and the adjustments we made to getting this a little bit more toned down did seem to help with the acidity as well. So level 3 where we opted to put that. Citrus fruit, level 3, that's a lot of the tropical qualities to this one. As mentioned, they do have that papaya, which would fall into the berry category, and outside of that, I think I just wanted to highlight that there's a little bit of a tropical citric quality to it as well. Stone fruit, level 3. I mentioned there's also a little bit of a mango characteristic, though at times it can present a little bit cleaner fresh fruit, so level 3 is where we opted to put that. Chocolate level 3, it's pretty prominent, and it's not too often that we do score a lot of Ethiopian coffees high in that chocolate category, so that's kind of interesting. Could be the priming effect given that they had the note list on here, but it's a pretty common characteristic, honestly, when it comes to natural processed Ethiopian coffees. Body level 3, plenty of texture to this one, fully expected. I mean, we're working with a B60 natural processed coffee, so even though it is an Ethiopian, just a little higher in that. And then the final two things we're discussing, that is the cleanliness level 3 and the smokiness level 2. So I really wanted to put the smokiness on there largely because this is just a little bit more robust. The chocolate has a little bit of a bitterness to it. It's just a little bit heavier than what we usually get. And I wouldn't necessarily say that it's overly roasty by any means. I mean, we've definitely had significantly more developed natural Ethiopian coffees, but it was just, I would say, a little bit more so than I was probably expecting. And then that played a slight role into the cleanliness, but it's honestly just the heaviness of the berries that really hindered the overall cleanliness. There is nice fruit qualities in a well-defined sense at times, but nothing enough to push that up to the level 4. So yeah, as I'm looking at this tasting wheel, I do think it is a pretty good representation of what I was getting from this coffee. All right, so my overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. It was definitely a victim of expectations. I mean, after 4.5 years of imagining what a natural processed Ethiopian coffee would be from a coffee roaster, I feel like it was going to be a near impossible for any coffee to live up to those sort of standards. But I briefly mentioned Kopi because I can't help but draw comparisons to them, given these two coffee roasters for the longest time have been extremely similar for me. I can't think of two coffee roasters that I could compare as similar as those two, because a lot of the issues and complaints I've heard about Calendar's coffees, especially their washed, is that they can be a little bit tame, and I can definitely see that. I've never seen that as a bad thing for myself because I like the way that it presents. It's a very safe sort of coffee, and I've always highlighted Calendar as being a very high floor and maybe moderate ceiling because I don't think I've ever been completely blown away by one of their coffees, but I always knew it was going to be a very safe bet. With an exception here or there that turned out to be a little bit better than expectations. This coffee, unfortunately, did turn out to be exactly what happened with the Kopi experiences that we had when we got their naturals. Very natural-like, which isn't a bad thing, but given that I wanted a little bit cleaner, maybe a more delicate and tame of an experience, it just didn't necessarily live up to the expectations that I had. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to. It is vintage, natural Ethiopian, so I mean that's why I feel like they've started to make it a more common and regular thing to offer a natural processed coffee, because I feel like a lot of people do need and seek out something like this as well. It's got all the classic attributes, plenty of berries, plenty of sweetness, plenty of intensity, and even a fair bit of body and some solid definition to go with it. Pretty prominent chocolate base, so a lot of what you'd expect from a coffee like this. Kind of the best direction I can point somebody towards on this one, and also the best way I can leave this review. If you by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee, I'd love to hear your thoughts and impressions of it as well. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Buku Abel Natural Processed Ethiopia from Calendar Coffee. Thank you for watching.